Good morning, Andrew.
Hey, good morning, Gary. How are you?
Doing well, and I know a lot of Bama fans, like I said, a little sleepy this morning, but excited. It was well worth the wait. Here's where I want to start off with this. Because just a couple of months ago, this young man seemed like a lock for the University of Southern California. He did decide, along with his parents, he wanted to do a southeastern tour to visit Alabama, Ole Miss, and Auburn. But I don't know that anybody seriously thought that he would wind up anywhere else other than Southern Cal. What happened?
Well, Alabama happened. His family took a visit to Tuscaloosa a few weeks ago. I guess it was about 3.5 weeks ago. The entire family flew out to Tuscaloosa, and the original plan was to spend a couple days in Tuscaloosa, then go over to Auburn, and then spend a day at Ole Miss, and then head back to Hawaii. Well, what they ended up doing is they flew into Tuscaloosa on a Thursday. They spent Thursday, Friday, then Saturday morning in Tuscaloosa visiting Alabama. They ended up going over to Auburn, and they ended up going over to Ole Miss. But then they ended up canceling their trip back to Hawaii. They came back to Alabama, spent Sunday, Monday, all of Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then didn't fly out back to Hawaii until Thursday. So they spent almost a week in Tuscaloosa just visiting the campus, spending time with the coaching staff, getting just acclimated to everything there was at Alabama, and they just fell in love. They said that it was an environment that felt like they were at home. They said the people were just so grateful, so respectful, so nice that they just couldn't believe it. They just loved every single thing about Alabama, that it was so much different than any other college that they went to, and they were so impressed with the academics. They said that Alabama has a lot of resources that a lot of other schools they may have, but they just didn't express those resources to them when they visited those campuses. So they just loved everything about Alabama. And I talked to Tua's father probably about an hour before the announcement last night, and he was just telling me just the comfort level that they felt at Alabama was just so much different than anywhere else that they visited, and they felt very comfortable sending Tua to Alabama.
You said a mouthful there, Andrew, but I'm going to go ahead and follow up with what you were saying about the hospitality. And Nick Saban's not exactly known as warm and fuzzy, but there's no doubt to recruits. He can connect with recruits on different levels. And, the Polynesian people in Hawaii, they're all about hospitality, the luau's, making people feel comfortable and at home. And as you said, that really registered with him and his family, not just from an athletic standpoint at Alabama, the facilities, we know how important football is, but the campus, the students, the faculty, how warm and inviting people are. Andrew, I see it every day with regular students that'll come in and visit from Connecticut or New York or Washington State or somewhere, and they get here and they just fall in love with the campus. It sounds like that's what happened with this family. They just got here to Tuscaloosa, as you said, and just fell in love with the place.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And like I said, his father told me, he said, and even Tua told me last night, he said, from the get-go, I was going to USC. And that's the school that I was going to. I had no idea that I was going to be going to the University of Alabama. I asked him, I said, when did you kind of know that Alabama was where you were going to go? Or, when did you even think Alabama was a possibility for you? He said, I really didn't think about it until I visited the campus. He said, I was going to USC. That's where I was going to school. And then I just visited Alabama, and just everything changed for me. And you see sometimes a lot of these recruits from the West Coast, they end up they visit Alabama, and it's on their first time visiting, they're really surprised by everything they see, because they just don't think a city like Tuscaloosa is going to be just as great as it is, and in terms of football, and they get there and they're just kind of blown away by everything. That the culture is just so much different than it is on the West Coast. Now, obviously, Hawaii is a few hours from California, but he he really liked it a lot, and I don't think a lot of people said even if he commits to Alabama, he probably will still end up, signing with USC or UCLA. And I just didn't get that vibe at all. You get that vibe sometimes when you talk to recruits when they commit that there's a chance that they could end up going somewhere else. And that, they're going to continue to take their visits, and this may be just a commitment for the next few months until they start taking their official visits. But I certainly didn't get that vibe last night, speaking to his father and speaking to him about his decision. They seem very locked in with Alabama.
We're visiting with Andrew Bone, recruiting reporter for TideSports.com and the state of Alabama for the Yahoo Sports Rivals.com network. You can follow him on Twitter at Andrew J. Bone. Let's talk about this young man as a football player, because that's really why people need to be excited. I mean, you watch the tape, and granted, he's playing in Hawaii where, there's not the level of high school football overall that there might be in this part of the country, but a lot of good players have come out of there. Dual threat guy, left-handed quarterback, can run it, can throw it, smart, has worked hard. His dad has been tutoring him. They've had training from quarterback gurus. Of course, his high school coach has done a good job with him. What's Alabama getting here in terms of a football player at the quarterback position?
Just from watching this film, I mean, it almost looks like you're watching, Johnny Manziel out there. Just the way that he plays, the moves that he can make out there. I mean, he's a smart football player. He's extremely quick. He's a great decision maker. He's just very athletic. He's got extremely good speed. You look at Alabama's the quarterbacks they've recruited over the last few years. And they've been able to get some quarterbacks that have some speed, that can run the football. Last year they ended up getting Jalen Hurts, one of the top dual threat quarterbacks in the country, and then this year they get Tua. And he's going to be a guy that is considering enrolling early. I spoke with him last night, and he told me he said that he has the opportunity to enroll early. He said, because I just don't know if my parents want me to do that just yet. I think his parents want him to stay as long as possible, because like we know, Hawaii is a long way away from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So we'll see if he's able to enroll early if he makes that decision later on. But he's an extremely athletic quarterback, and certainly someone that I think Alabama and Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin are excited to have.
We're visiting with Andrew Bone from TideSports.com in regards to Tua Tagovailoa, who committed to Alabama last night from Honolulu, Hawaii, St. Louis High School there. Of course, the obvious comparisons to Marcus Mariota are going to come. But is he a similar player to Mariota? You've seen them both. What's that comparison? Is that fair or is that unfair?
Well, there are going to be those comparisons, and we'll have to wait and see how he performs once he gets to Tuscaloosa, gets to the college level, and gets acclimated to Alabama's system. But he certainly is a different quarterback that Alabama fans in Alabama are used to recruiting, and he certainly got that similar skill set to Marcus Mariota, and I think he's going to be a very exciting football player in college. There's no doubt about it.
Andrew, watching the announcement last night on KHON News there in Honolulu with sports director Rob DeMello, Rob asked Tua, why are you doing this now? You could wait and go through the process longer. And I thought his answer was interesting. He said, I want to go ahead and do this now so that the other schools that I don't choose that are recruiting me can go find themselves another quarterback. That's a pretty thoughtful answer for a 17-year-old. Shows you that he isn't just thinking about himself in this deal, but he's thinking about all of the schools that put the effort in to recruit him.
Yeah, and there's the last few years it's been very interesting to watch most of the top quarterbacks in the country come off the board early, and that may have a big reason to do with it. But you really don't see big time quarterbacks wait all the way until the end. You see a lot of these elite prospects wait until signing day or may announce it as an Under Armour or the U.S. Army All-America game. But most of the top quarterbacks in the country seem to get off the board way early in the recruiting process. And when I spoke with Tua last night, he mentioned that, and he also mentioned that he wants to start helping recruit other players to Alabama. He said, I feel like it's my job, as the quarterback, as the leader of this recruiting class, to go ahead and start recruiting players to come to Tuscaloosa. He said, you want to have the best players surrounding you, and so you have to put pride aside and help get guys to commit and jump on the train with you.
Visiting with Andrew Bone from TideSports.com here on the Bud Light Hotline, presented by Adams Beverages here on the Gary Harris Show, powered by Pepsi. In regards to the commitment last night from Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback from St. Louis High School in Honolulu, Hawaii, I'm going to put you on the spot. And you're used to this. You're used to making evaluations and comparisons. Alabama had a quarterback committed in this class, Jake Fromm. He decommitted, flipped to Georgia from Warner Robins, Georgia, so no surprise there. Now they get Tagovailoa. Probably Fromm's decommitment had a lot to do with Alabama turning up the heat in recruiting Tua. Who got the better end of the deal here in terms of these two quarterbacks, Georgia or Alabama?
Certainly it's a tough question because you just got to wait and see what happens when both get to college. A few years ago it happened with a similar situation happened with Blake Barnett and Ricky Town.
Right.
Ricky Town was committed to Alabama for so long and then decommits, and everybody thought the end of the world had happened. That they had lost this big 5-star quarterback. Well, Blake Barnett ends up at the end of the day being rated higher than Ricky Town, and now Ricky Town ends up leaving USC now is at Arkansas. But we'll wait and see. Both are different skill sets. Jake Fromm's more of a pro style quarterback. He's got a big time arm. Probably a better arm than Tua does, but Tua brings a different skill set in terms of being an athletic guy who can do a lot of different things. So I don't think you're really going to know the better end for a couple of years, but both are outstanding guys. Both are in the Rivals 100, and I got a feeling both are going to have really good careers.
All right, Andrew, before I let you go, I want to go back to a story last week that you were involved with breaking with Aaron Suttles in regards to Bo Davis. He did indeed resign his position for some potential recruiting violations. What's this mean for Alabama in terms of recruiting? Bo Davis, a very effective recruiter for the Crimson Tide the last couple of years, especially in the state of Mississippi where it's tough going a lot of times. Short term, how big a loss is this for Alabama with Bo Davis no longer on the staff?
Well, it puts them a little bit behind the curve on the recruiting front, just because there's some areas that he would have gone to recruit that in the last 2 weeks that he hasn't been able to go and recruit. The Houston area has been a big area for Alabama over the last few years, and that was a big area that Alabama has not recruited this spring yet, just because of the whole Bo Davis situation. So it puts them a little bit behind in the state of Texas. It could hurt a little bit with some recruits. Marvin Wilson, the number one defensive lineman in the country, number one recruit in the country out of Texas, says that his recruitment with Alabama is pretty much over. We'll see what happens over the next few months if he ends up coming back in, maybe this summer or possibly for an official visit. See if things end up changing, but I think Alabama's going to end up being okay. They need to hire a defense. They need to make a defensive line coach, hire an official, and get him on the road and get him to start recruiting and build these relationships with these top recruits.
If it's Carl Dunbar, as is being reported, a great defensive line coach, extensive experience in the NFL, was with Saban a couple of years on the staff there at LSU in the early 2000s, but has not recruited in a long time. When you bring a guy in that's been in the NFL for a long time, do you have to kind of get him on the train, so to speak, with the other coaches and teach him how to recruit again, bring him up to speed? What's the transition like when you bring in an NFL guy and he has to get out on the road recruiting, if indeed it turns out to be Carl Dunbar?
Yeah, you're certainly going to have to bring him up to speed on what it takes to be a recruiting coach on the road for Alabama. And I'm sure a lot of recruits, most of them aren't really going to know who he is. Just because they're not going to have any sort of relationship with him. He's not coming from another school in the SEC or another school, somewhere else. He's coming from the NFL, and a lot of these recruits won't know him, and they'll have to just build these relationships with him. And we're we're several months into recruiting in the 2017 class, so he's certainly going to have to step up once he gets to Tuscaloosa.
Final thing, with Bo Davis leaving, there's been some talk, as we kind of alluded to, that guys that were considering Alabama might not be. But getting Tua on board, how big a shot in the arm is that for Alabama in regards to momentum recruiting other prospects?
That's huge. Alabama had needed some good news on the recruiting front. They got some great news on Monday night. And I think it's going to continue. Throughout the spring, throughout the summer, they've got a good chance to bring in some top guys. And I think the coaches are doing a good job recruiting on the road this year. And they're kind of recruiting every area of the country. Obviously, they're recruiting the state of Hawaii now, so they're certainly hitting all areas, and I think they're going to have a really good class heading into the fall. I think they're going to have several commitments on board, and I think it's going to be a really big thing for them. Getting Tua on board, he says that he's going to start recruiting, guys, from the get-go. So I think it's a great thing for them to go ahead and get him on board before the summer.
And Andrew, final question: with Tua on board, has Rivals.com adjusted its ratings yet in terms of the recruiting rankings? Where does Alabama stand right now?
I haven't even looked at the actual team rankings this morning. I think it's let me check real quick. I think Alabama's currently sitting at number 7 in the Rivals.com team rankings. But I will say this: they have the highest star average rating in the country, currently sitting at an average star rating of 4. That's pretty impressive.
Pretty good.
So I think they're going to continue to climb. As we remember, on signing day last year, they were sitting at number 10 heading into signing day, and ended up going all the way to number 1.
Alabama recruiting well. Imagine that. We're getting used to it. Hey, real quickly, just tell folks again where they can keep up with all your recruiting stuff.
Yeah, please follow us at tidesports.com, which is part of the Rivals.com football recruiting network. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Andrew J. Bone, B-O-N-E.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right, thanks a lot, Gary.